Hello, Career Nation. Welcome back to the Career Remix. And this is episode 23. I'm your host, Abhijit. And today we're going to talk about the 7 career superpowers. And it's very likely that you may already have these superpowers. So again, just to introduce myself, my name's Abhijit. I am a tech executive by day. And on weekends, I'm here to help you have a great career through these video sessions as well as my coaching. As we get into this episode, I really wanted to talk a little bit about our first quick tip, which is status quo versus change. Look, we are all professionals and we are all working in our own work environments, but sometimes you got to stop a little bit and take some time to think about what is the change that I'm driving in the space. And a lot of times we may feel that, there's status quo going on and there is just in terms of all of the things that are around you, things may not be changing as fast. And so you have to become the change agent. So once in a while, pause and think, are you bringing change to your environment, to your organization, to your team? Are you improving things? Are you improving productivity? Are you improving customer experience, or whatever that might be? So that's an area where you really want to focus on in terms of what change have you brought lately to your organization in a positive way, and that will help you to further bring more value to your company, to your organization. Hopefully that quick tip helped you. As we get into these episodes, feel free to like and share these videos so that other friends of yours can take advantage of it. So without further ado, let's get into the main topic, which is our 7 career superpowers. Look, all of us have certain skills and experiences that we have. A lot of times those may not be as identifiable for most of us. In other words, we may not even know that these superpowers exist within us. And a lot of times it's really good to understand, take a step back and understand what are my superpowers? How can I take some of those talents and skills that I have and amplify them, because it will create even more value, not only for my career, but also for my organization. So let's jump into it. I have 7 for you. Let's get to number 7. Number 7 is about focus. This is a superpower. Think about all of the noise that is around you because of your social media, because of your email, because of your text messages, because of the constant meetings and the conversations around you. A superpower in this space is to how do you separate the noise and really get to what's the real clear signal. In other words, you have to really make sure that you separate out all the noise that's around you and focus on what's your objective. And so when you get to that space where you can identify that clear signal, that is a superpower. So creating focus for yourself and your team, that is a superpower. So exercise the superpower so that you can get to the objectives that you've laid down for yourself and your team. Focusing in a constantly distracted world is absolutely a superpower. Think about how you can take that more into your work. The next one is communication. And this is a sort of a cliche topic. Of course, everybody needs to have great communication, no question. However, communication is not just about talking or talking well. It's also about listening. And so how do you engage with others and how do you listen well to others is super important. I mean, God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We are expected to listen more and then think deeply about it and then speak in a way that engages others so that we can have a communication. It's a 2-way communication, not a 1-way communication. It's a superpower. Sometimes it's an acquired skill. I mean, you may know many people in your team or your company who are always talking. So, it's not a good thing. And by having a more open and clear communication with people around you, it will really help to better results for your team. So communication is the superpower number 6. Let's go to superpower number 5. Superpower number 5 is about decision making. And decision making is such an important trait and an important skill to have. It is one of the most important things that you could build in your toolbox as a professional. Sometime back in this podcast, we had talked about how do you build mental models. Building mental models is such an important thing. For example, you can apply a mental model like the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, which means 80% of your company's revenues come from 20% of your customers, or 80% of the value comes from 20% of the employees. You can apply the 80-20 rule in many which ways as applicable. But here's the interesting part. As you grow in your career and you get more experience, you learn more mental models. And what you can do is start identifying patterns. Like, hey, this pattern matches this mental model, so I can move to a decision-making area using this mental model, or maybe a combination of models. Let me give you 2 additional resources for decision-making. One is a book by Ray Dalio, which is about principles. So Ray Dalio is one of the world's richest people. He runs the world's largest hedge fund, and he's created a book based on the mistakes he's made. And it's called Principles, and I highly recommend that book. Also, another book that recently came out is by Dan Pink, and Dan talks about when, i.e., what is a good time for making a decision. And a lot of times in decision making, timing is important. So Dan talks about not just the time of the day in which you do your best work, etc., but the timing of your decisions using some data. So highly recommend those 2 books as you build up your decision-making superpower. Let's roll into superpower number 4, and that is influencing. Influencing is different than communication. Influencing is different than engagement. Influencing is about how can you tell stories, how can you tell your arguments, your ideas, your innovation in a way that influences others so that you can actually take your ideas further. It's a combination of having the right narrative, having the right visuals, and having the right data. All of that packaged into a single influenceable message that you can take to your stakeholders, to your team members, to your customers. Whoever it is that is important for your business, you can take your influencing powers to them so that you can communicate your ideas more effectively and, more importantly, drive a better outcome. Power of influence is so important in today's corporate environments. A lot of times you may be in dotted line relationships. For example, you may be dotted line into a couple of executives, or other people may be dotted line into you. As more of these dotted line, informal, professional relationships become du jour in today's corporate environment, the power of influencing becomes even more important. It also helps you to create your own personal brand around your power of influence, because the team or the person that can tell the ideas the best way, influence others, wins. This is an economy of ideas. So make sure you are able to take your influencing superpower to the next level so that you can take your ideas further and make real change happen, create more value for your team. That was superpower number 4. Let's get into superpower number 3, and that is adaptability. And that is the continuous reinvention that all of us have to go through. Things are changing so dynamically in the business and technology world that it is unbelievable. It's unprecedented. But here's the interesting part. The pace of change is only going to go faster in the future. So what does that mean? That means we have to be adaptable. We have to adapt to new business dynamics, new business environments, and new technologies all at the same time. Also, make sure that we are taking care of all the demographic changes that are happening in the workforce. What that means is because of all of these trends and changes in environment, we have to be super adaptable. We have to understand what those trends are and be adaptive to those trends and make sure we are leading the change and we are not getting impacted by the change. That's a very important trait to have. And so adaptability is on my number 3 list of superpowers for your career. Let's go to superpower number 2, which is empathy. And empathy, it's a little different than sympathy. Sympathy is you sympathize with someone when somebody's going through a bad time. Empathy is different. Empathy is about how can you walk in a mile in someone else's shoes. That someone else could be your customer, could be a team member, could be someone that reports to you. It could even be your life partner. If you can figure out how can you walk in someone else's shoes, understand where they're coming from, understand what is the pain that they are feeling, understand what constraints do they have, why can't they think in a certain way, what is driving them, what are their emotional and psychological areas that are forcing them in a particular decision making. Those are the type of things that you can get into from an empathy standpoint. Once you do that, once you understand others better and you understand empathy, that is a massive superpower because you can now understand what's driving the other person, what's driving the other team, and last but not the least, let's go to superpower number 1. Drum roll, please. Superpower number 1 is about learning. And this is a superpower for a reason. By continuously learning, we can build a career stack that is unbeatable. In today's environment, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, things are changing so fast. And you have to constantly adapt, but you have to also constantly learn. And for all of us, learning can happen in different ways. In general, there are 3 different ways to learn. One is audio. We learn by hearing from others. And second is visual. We learn by seeing or observing. Or the third one, which is kinesiology, which is basically we learn by doing. May I submit to you that as we get more older, or let's say we get more experience, learning by doing becomes more important. So the way we can build our career stack is not only by listening and observing, but also by doing. So let me submit to you that your number 1 superpower is learning. And if you can build a learning muscle so that you're continuously learning, you learn every day, I can guarantee you that your talent stack will be very rich. And then you will have not only a successful career, but you'll have so many options in your career that you will have a hard time figuring out where should you go because there will be so much opportunity. Enriching your career through learning is a massive superpower. Please use it and please understand it. You know, those were the 7 superpowers for your career. A lot of these superpowers are things that you already have. You may already have that intrinsically, but you may not have realized it. So may I submit to you to identify those superpowers within you and amplify them. Use them on a daily basis, and it will guarantee uplift and elevate your career. That's all we had, folks, for this episode. Hope you liked this episode. Hope you got some value out of this. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in chat. I would be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for your support. Please like and share these videos. And this is Abhijit signing off, and I'll see you at the next Career Remix session. Thank you, and have a good one.